Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by Bet365. Lots to get to today. My name is Dave Rodrelli. I am joined by our technical producer, who's doing everything today, Jacob Lazar. We are going to be joined by Harman Dial, but he's going to be a bit because he is at the rink. He was at the rink, and Jacob, do you have any idea why this might be? It took Rick Tocchet a while to come out and speak to the media today. Why might that be, you ask? We know the answer, and we're going to dive into it. It was a practice day for the Vancouver Canucks today. We've got some news and notes that we're going to get to from practice, but we'll wait for Harman to dive into all of those because he got them himself. He was at the rink and he gave us those. He's going to give us those updates, and he's going to be here in a few minutes. So he'll join us soon. But the news of the day, I think we can call it the news of the day. There's been a couple pieces of news that we want to get to. We reacted to it late yesterday, the Rogers deal with the NHL. That's not officially announced yet, but we're going to talk about that a little bit more later in the show. There's some stuff about Tom Willander that we have to talk about. But first, I want to start with this report from Sportsnet's Elliotte Friedman, where he was talking about Rick Tocchet. Now, if you remember, Elliotte Friedman was talking about Rick Tocchet yesterday on 32 Thoughts, the podcast. And on that podcast was where we talked about this idea where Friedman said, I don't think they're going to be bringing Tocchet back on the option. Now, someone clearly got to Elliotte Friedman because Friedman today is reporting that the Canucks will exercise the option on Rick Tocchet's contract if necessary. Clear distinction here too. No, I'm hearing. It's the Canucks will do this. And this, of course, coming a day after Friedman came out and said he doesn't think that the Canucks would use the option on Tocchet's contract. Now, there's been a lot of confusion around what this option is on Rick Tocchet's contract. The clarity that we have now is that his contract is up on June 30th. The guaranteed portion of it expires on June 30th, but there's a team option for 25-26. This is what Friedman said. According to several sources, the Canucks are indicating that if Tocchet is coaching next season, it will be in Vancouver on his club option or with an extension. Their goal is to extend him, but they will exercise the option if it is necessary. Now, this is a really interesting one for me because the last time there was a club option on a coach in Vancouver, it was Bruce Boudreau. Now, a little bit of a different scenario here because that one, as far as I know, that one was an option for Boudreau, and Boudreau took the option even though management didn't really want him here. And I mean, that much was made clear when Jim Rutherford came out and said he didn't know that there was a second year on Bruce Boudreau's contract or that he had that option. Boudreau took that option. The Canucks did not fire him, and we know how that final season went. It got very toxic. It got very bad for everybody. It was a bad look for the Canucks. Obviously, it was really tough to watch what Bruce Boudreau was going through at that time. Not identical. These situations are not identical, but it was the last time there was an option. And here's the thing. When we talk about this, you're going to hear me say things like, don't think it's a great idea. You're going to hear me talk about it negatively because I don't think it's a great idea to bring back a coach who doesn't want to extend here, right? But when I say that, I'm not saying it for the reason of I think Rick Tocchet's going to quit on this team or that Rick Tocchet's not going to do his absolute best to coach this team to the best of his abilities. I don't for a second question Rick Tocchet's actual commitment to the players if he's here. Rick Tocchet has to look out for himself. So obviously I understand this. Like he's going to be a well-paid coach. He's coming off a Jack Adams win. Like I get it from both perspectives. And again, this is all part of the negotiating process. So before we go have these dramatic takes of this means this, and this is my take till the end. This is all part of the negotiating process. The reports that Tocchet's going to be one of the highest paid coaches in the league, that's part of the negotiating process. The report today that the Canucks are going to bring him back on a club option, that's also part of the negotiating process. So we have to always look at it through that lens. But I do obviously think that bringing back, and we've talked about this before, bringing him back on a team option doesn't seem like the best idea. Jacob?
Well, you can almost equate it like when baseball teams have arbitration contracts with players, right? It's part of the process. The team probably wants to extend the player, maybe not for as long as the player would want with the security. The player doesn't really want to go to arbitration because it's kind of frustrating to have to hear from your team why you're not worth what you think you're worth. That's not necessarily what's going on here with Tocchet, but it is the kind of thing where I think both parties would rather not have to do that. I think the team would rather sign Rick Tocchet And Tocchet would rather have a contract if he wants to stay in Vancouver, right? It's kind of the worst case scenario. Is it going to be as terrible as some people might think? Probably not. I think I'm with you. I don't think you want him here on a option, but he's not going to quit on the team because of that, right? That's not the way Rick Tocchet is. That's not the way he deals with his players. I don't think that's a worry that you have to have.
Yeah. Rick Tocchet responded to this, as I was alluding to earlier. He took a while to come out. Jacob, we have that video, right, of Rick Tocchet.
We do, and we have Harman, so I can bring Harman back in, and I'll drop back into the background.
Well, we'll bring Harman in. Harman, you were there. We're about to play Rick Tocchet's response to the Friedman report, so we'll dive into that on the other side. Let's go. Let's hear it, Jacob.
You know me, I'm trying to be as honest as possible. I honestly am thinking, like, trying to, get this team in and, the direction, all that stuff, that's for another conversation, with Jim and Patrick. I mean, we go way back, so we'll have those conversations. But right now, I'm thinking of how you beat Seattle. I really am. I know people don't believe it. It's the truth. So, and, this is a great city. I walk around the city. It's a phenomenal city. The fans have been great. So, just say that. It's a great city, but there's some things that we'll talk about down the road, and it's not the right time right now.
So the report suggested that the club has exercised its option to bring you back next year, whether an extension is done or not. Has that been communicated to you?
At this point, it hasn't been exercised, but it's not. That's not because of Jim and Patrick. It will be communicated when it gets done. You know what I mean? So. And those guys have been great to me because they know I've been, entrenched in this playoff drive. They've been great.
Harman, you were there. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. What was your reaction to all of that today?
Yeah, I'll be surprised not, or I'll be honest, not totally surprised. I expected Tocchet to not really reveal a whole lot. I don't think he wants to be a focal point or conversation in this market. I think the more interesting thing is the fact that this report came out in the first place. I think it signals to me anyway that management probably wants to calm a lot of the storylines. I don't know if you've heard a lot of what's been going on in Philadelphia, but the push is hard. The push is hard. There was another article today over at The Athletic by Kevin Kurz, the Flyers beat writer, about why Rick Tocchet makes sense. There's just been so much speculation and talk in Philly about Rick Tocchet that I think Canucks management wants to make it very clear that, hey, this is our guy, and just calm the external noise. That's my biggest takeaway from it, more than just the Tocchet reaction, because I didn't expect him to say anything interesting, is this report to me indicates that quite clearly management still loves Rick Tocchet, still believes in him, still wants him back, which is an important part of this conversation.
I didn't think of that Philadelphia aspect, because people in the chat right away are all thinking about Vancouver, obviously. And so was I. When I talked about it, it was, how does this affect the Canucks? How does this affect Vancouver? And I'll go back to that thought process, Harm. We were talking about Bruce Boudreau right before you joined. We were talking about how the last time there was a coach on an option, and obviously it's very different. It's a very different situation, but not all that different, but a different situation nonetheless. We talked about how that was Bruce Boudreau the last time. And I would say Project Keep Quinn Hughes, which is what this franchise's main purpose is for the next 2 years, Project Quinn Hughes, I think, should hinge on making as little drama as possible. Have the least amount of drama possible. And I'm not sure bringing back Rick Tocchet on a club option is the best way to do that.
Yeah, it's not. And look, I'm sure management knows that's not the ideal path. But again, it's more about optics. It's more about a level of posturing and just showing to the rest of the league that, hey, this is our guy. Keep your paws off.
And we talked about this before you joined, that this is all part of the negotiating process. So let's not try to get too emotional about every report that comes out over the next little bit.
Especially, again, it was funny reading the comments for that article that Kevin Kurz wrote, because so many people were accusing him of just carrying water for the Flyers organization and, oh, you're just being a mouthpiece, and just sort of the insinuation being that the Flyers really want Tocchet and they're trying to get that narrative out there for if and when he gets hired, that, hey, this is a great coaching hire. Which, that's the other interesting part of this, is Flyers fans, for the most part, at least from what I've seen online, do not actually want Rick Tocchet hired as their head coach. And I think a lot of it comes down to how much of an old boys club that organization has become, where they just hire former players at every position. I think people looked at the way Danny Briere got the GM job despite not really having experience. Keith Jones, president of hockey ops, despite not really having much experience. Like it already thrust into those positions, and now they're going, what, you're just bringing Rick Tocchet back because he's a beloved player, rather than in the minds of Flyers fans searching for the best candidate out there. So I thought that part was interesting too. I didn't expect the Flyers fan base to be as against the idea of hiring Rick Tocchet as I've seen online.
Okay, there's some confusion in the chat about what the option means. So his contract, the guaranteed portion of his contract, ends on June 30th. We broke this down. And the team has an option to bring him back on the same terms that he's currently on for 1 year. That's how the option works. And the team is saying, if you're just joining us, the team is saying that they are going to use that if he doesn't sign a contract. So they're going to have Rick Tocchet in Vancouver next year. At least that's what we saw, according to Elliot Friedman this morning. You were also at practice for other news and notes. Harm, we got some injury updates on Filip, Elias Paterson, and Nils Höglander. I'll start with Hedl because I saw that one, and obviously it's a tough blow. Filip, the odds are stacked against him to return this season. Just a really tough blow for him. Obviously, he's dealt with concussions at various points throughout his career. Rick Tocchet saying today he's had good days and bad days, but it's not looking good for Filip to return this season.
Yeah, tough news. And again, not totally surprised because of him not practicing. And with such little time left in the season, there's no point in even trying to rush him back and get him to play games. At this point, just call the season a wash, let him recover for months over the offseason, hopefully have a relatively normal summer training regimen, and then hopefully he's healthy by training camp. I did find it interesting that it may have been Farhan who asked Tocchet whether there's some concern about this being a career-ending type of injury, and that's where Tocchet said that he'd spoken to Hedl, and the bad days that Hedl has had haven't been as bad as previous concussions. So that's at least some glimmer of hope. But it's really tough to count on Hedl. It's similar to the Thatcher Demko conversation, where when the guy's healthy, he's a really talented, effective player. But how many games is he actually going to be healthy for? And it makes it complicated trying to plan this roster for next season as well, because he costs over $4 million against the cap, nearly 4.5, and yet you need to preserve. You have to assume that he's going to play games next season, because you can't this summer just assume he's going to be on LTIR all of next year. And yet you don't know how many games he's actually going to be healthy for. So there could be a scenario where he eats up a decent cap hit, and yet you don't get games out of him. So it's a tough spot for the Canucks to be in, even for accounting purposes. And if you're back into LTIR next season, even if it's for a portion of the campaign, there's that sort of downside of you're not able to accrue cap space. It just adds a logistical complication to managing the cap moving forward when you don't know what Hedl's health is going to permit him to be able to do next season.
Another complicated piece in the Canucks puzzle. You got some updates on Nils Höglander and Elias Paterson.
Yeah, Nils Höglander was wearing a red non-contact jersey. The way Tocchet described him, Höglander sounds really eager. He's chomping at the bit to get back to playing. Tocchet was saying that the likelihood of him returning to the lineup is higher, and that he'll probably return sooner than Elias Paterson in comparison. So that's an encouraging sign, and you can understand it from Höglander's perspective, because he was finally starting to find his game right before the injury. And for him, if he can come back through these last handful of games and still be productive, it creates positive momentum heading into next season, as opposed to, okay, you seem to have a positive stretch of games right before the injury, but then the injury derailed that momentum. So you can understand why Höglander is really motivated, and why he seems, even just based on him practicing today, he seems to be the closest one out of the bunch. With Paterson, Tocchet still sounded hopeful that he'd return at some point this season. He called it more of a day-to-day thing with Petey. But in having said that, Paterson's skated once or twice only, and he wasn't at practice. So I'm not getting my hopes up that he's going to be back really quick in this upcoming stretch. But Tocchet didn't discount the possibility that he could be back before the end of the campaign.
Good stuff. Anything else from practice you wanted to get to?
No, it was just funny with Rick taking a while to come out. It was funny. So in the locker room, the scrums were relatively quick, and that's why I thought, oh yeah, I'll be able to make it through practice and come to the show on time. We were waiting for probably 20 minutes for Tocchet to come out, and by the time he finally did, the media crew was like hooting and hollering and giving him claps, and they were Mo just throwing around jokes about how he owes us media party now or something. I thought that was pretty funny.
And what did he say?
Well, he just laughed and played along. So yeah, of course, I think we all know that there isn't actually a media party. So
There's not. Moj was giving me crap today because I'm last place in the fantasy baseball league, but it's so early. It's like the first week he's chirping me. Anyways,
yeah, Moj was telling me, he's like, you got to bring it up on the show.
Yeah, he thinks I'm scared to show my face around the rink because I'm last in fantasy baseball. I will remind Moj, regular listener of the show, that I was first place through 2 months last year, and
then what happened?
We fell off. We're off to a tough start this year.
Where did you finish?
I finished like 6th or something.
I'll also remind people that I'm, I think, 6th or 7th in the same league, so right in the middle of the pack.
Whatever.
You claim to be a baseball expert.
Well, I'm hurt by Colton Kauser. Our team actually kind of sucks. I'm looking at it now. Yeah, that's not
Faber also wanted me to mention that he passed you in the other fantasy baseball league you're in.
Don't tell. Okay.
You're catching all the strays for your.
I can't chirp
baseball.
Faber. I can't chirp Faber on this show. But if Faber thinks he knows ball, he's got another thing.
I mean, he's ahead of you.
Yeah, he's first place. I'm second place. I'm like right on his heels.
Yeah, but you can't say the guy doesn't know ball when he literally passed you.
No, Faber doesn't know ball. I don't know how he does it because he does it. He can't name half his team. I'm sure of it. Like he has some sort of like software or someone feeding him a list. Like he doesn't know. He doesn't know.
What does that say about you then?
What do you mean?
He's ahead of you.
First week, man. It's first week. His boys are playing well. We don't need to talk about this. People don't want to hear this. Jeff Paterson's going to join us a little bit later again, like I said, because Rick Tocchet was late today. So Jeff is going to be late as well. So let's just get to anyone else. We'll do anyone else, and if we're interrupted by Jeff, we're interrupted by Jeff. He's not here, right, Jacob?
Correct. Jeff is not here yet.
Let's do it. Let's get to anyone else then, which is presented by Pacific Toyota dealers, who want to tell you about the 100% electric Toyota BZ4X, an SUV packed with plenty of space. The BZ4X can handle any terrain and can take you from the city to the slopes. Plus, if you're driving a BZ4X, you get access to HOV lanes, even if you're driving alone. When you choose the BZ4X, you can get up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives, and now you can finance 2025 BZ4X in 3.29% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. Okay, this is Conversation's comment. I don't want to get to it right away. As a fan, I hope Hedl is back at 100% in the fall. As a person, I hope he retires. It's happened too many times, and it's now happening too easily. That hit should not have caused a serious concussion. We didn't really talk about that aspect of it all. That, like, obviously he wasn't ready for the hit, but that hit, like, it didn't get a suspension, it didn't get a fine. The league didn't even look at it as like a dirty hit. The whiplash is, I think, what really is affecting him. I would think, right? Based on what we saw, his head snapping back the way it did. It wasn't like a huge blow to the head, though.
Yeah, Hedl's in a tough spot where even if he returns and is healthy again, you're always going to have that fear. Anytime he takes physical contact, you grimace a little bit. And we knew about his injury history before he got to Vancouver. So even before this Dickinson hit, I'll be honest, when he would take contact, go into the boards or fall over, there'd be part of me that wonders, is this the last hit he's going to take before he gets hurt, right? And that fear is not going to go away anytime soon. Even if he returns the re-injury risk is going to be elevated for him significantly compared to the average NHL player. And yeah, I'm at a point where I really worry that this is gonna derail his career, and of course that's where you enter the territory of at one point do you look at the risk of it harming your future as a person, as a human in your day-to-day quality of life, to where maybe you got to retire and sort of go the Tucker Poolman and Michael Furlan route, which obviously no player wants to do because it's part of their identity, it's part of their career, it's what they love to do. But we're getting close to that territory where he's going to have to decide and make as informed a decision as possible about the risk to reward ratio about his future.
And that's a crazy thing to even. And sorry, it's not a crazy thing to suggest. Like you're bang on, but the thought of retiring, like Filip's 5 months older than I am. Like just to put it into perspective, like he's a young guy still. Like he's a young guy, and it just sucks, man. It's so crappy that he's faced these concussion problems. Like yeah, I really hope he can. I hope he can be back at 100% in the fall, obviously, but I hope he makes the right decision for himself, whatever that is. But man, it's crazy that we're talking about a guy who's 25 potentially having to retire. That's unbelievable. So yeah, hopefully he is able to recover and be good to go by the season and make the best decision for himself. But yeah, Heedle, it's one we're going to follow throughout the offseason, I suppose. Erwin Aquino, we didn't even talk about it. Today's April Fool's Day, Harm. Did you get got by anything today?
No, I'll be honest. I'm a little bit underwhelmed. It feels like a normal day. I haven't seen too many good April Fool's jokes.
Did you read Canucks Armies?
No.
Oh, good. I was about to have my feelings very hurt. So I did this last night. I came up with this. Have you heard about the torpedo bats in Major League Baseball?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask you about what the hell's going on with these torpedo bats.
Okay, I guess I can talk about it right now. The torpedo bats are basically used. The Yankees are the ones that started it. Basically, what it is there's regulations on like width of a bat, but it doesn't necessarily specify where it has to be. So bats haven't really been redesigned in the 200 plus years that baseball's been around. Not too much, right? Like they're basically the same. Like the wood gets wider as you go. Better way to say that, but you know what I'm saying, right? The Yankees basically like added more mass to the part of the bat where players are more likely to hit the ball. And it's different for every player is the crazy thing. So like the analytics department was tracking where guys were making contact on the bat, and then they were custom making these bats for those players and just putting the most mass where those players are making contact the most. And then it's a legal bat according to MLB because you just put the rest of the you get what I'm saying, right? And Jacob will find a picture, I'm sure, at some point. But it's interesting because they look different.
They look like bowling pins, essentially.
Yeah, they look like bowling pins.
How significant of an impact is this going to be? Is this like NHL moving from wood sticks to composite?
Well, the Yankees set the MLB record for home runs in their first 3 games of a season with 15. You can see the bat there. The top bat there is the torpedo bat. Yeah, so you can see, like, again, the end of the bat is smaller than the bottom bat, right?
It's hard to tell that on this photo because the other bat is black, but it is tapered to be smaller at the end.
Yes. So anyways, they set the MLB record for most homers through 3 games, and then last night Ellie De La Cruz in Cincinnati uses it for the first time. He finally gets his order in of torpedo bats. He hits 2 homers and has 7 RBIs. So, and again, I think they were playing the Brewers. That seems to be the common denominator here. Actually, were they playing the Brewers?
Yeah, I think so. I will also point out that Aaron Judge is not using his torpedo bat with the Yankees, and he's still been their best hitter. So it seems to be a personal preference thing. To your point, Harm, like, is it going to revolutionize the way that composite sticks did in hockey? Not quite, but it wouldn't shock me if like over half the league is using these things by the end of the year.
See, back in the day, baseball players just took steroids like real men.
That's good. That's really good. Yeah, back in my day. That's good. So yeah, someone in the chat, Dylan McDonald, said Canucks Army got me today because I posted that article on Canucks Army that they had the they had torpedo sticks coming. Now, Paul Papadoulis, I don't do this. This had to be a clickbait page because there's a lot of them out there. Canucks page, I'm assuming it's on Facebook because there's so many out there that are just pure clickbait. Canucks page posted a fake best extension that I fell for at 7 a.m. Like, I would never do that. That's the thing. And I direct at Nation Network. I'm the director of April Fool's content. I want that on my title instead of editor-in-chief. So I was going over it with all of our sites, and we got good stuff all over our company today. The Oilers Nation guys came up with surplus charging at Oilers games that go to overtime. Everybody's credit card gets charged more money.
That's funny.
They got a lot of people with that one. That one was really good. Last year at Canucks Army, we did like Mark Messier to have his jersey retired or to
Oh
go to
yeah,
the Ring
I
of
remember
Honor.
that one.
Yeah, so like I always try to make it like pretty clear that it's an April Fool's joke, but it's enough to make you be like, what? And then you click and then it's clear. Like in the article today, I wrote, what did I write? I wrote that Quinn Hughes tried the stick out at practice and his shots were being clocked at 127 miles per hour. And then I wrote later, there's some concern for the overall safety of the players and the stability of the plexiglass, but the NHL's head of equipment safety, which isn't a real position, Ivan Drago, who obviously isn't a real person, says this is a situation they're eager to see unfold.
You know who Ivan Drago is, right?
Yeah, that's why I wrote the story, Jacob.
I know. I'm just saying. You said he's not a real person, but you didn't actually mention. I'm sure there's people in our chat that don't know who Ivan Drago is.
I just assumed they would.
I don't.
Harman, no.
Oh, okay. It's all good. So in the Rocky movies, you know Rocky, right?
Yeah.
Okay. He's the guy that,
Okay.
that says
Yeah,
if he dies, he
All right.
dies.
The Soviet boxer crafted in the lab. I have a quick April Fool's story, hockey related. When I was working for the Coquitlam Express in the BCHL, I pulled off an April Fool's joke one year that was so good that our coach/GM got calls from other GMs in the league asking how he was able to get this player. I put a post out about how the Express signed a 16-year-old Russian-born player who was playing in Uzbekistan, and he was 6'7", 292 pounds at 16 years old, and he put up 192 points in 42 games in the Uzbek Junior League, and it worked. We had
funny.
Coaches saying, "How did you get around restrictions? How did you find this guy?" And no, it was just I even made a fake elite prospects page that I had a screenshot of in the like on the website, so people would scroll through and they would see his elite prospects page with his name and all of his stats and everything in there. It was my piece de resistance. That was I'll never top that as long as I'm working in hockey media.
I love it. Do we have Jeff now?
We did, but he keeps dropping out. It looks like he's sitting in the stands at Rogers Arena trying to get connected. So I'll let you know when he's good to go.
He's got time. Paul Papadoulis said it was an Instagram page that posted 8.7 million 8-year extension and put April Fool's at the bottom.
What an awful extension that would be.
If it's that's not good for Brock Besser. If it's an Instagram post, I have way less issue with that. I think that's fair game. Instagram, and it's clear in the caption it's an April Fool's joke. I think that's fair game. But those content farming places on Facebook bug me so much.
I feel bad for like the uncles and the aunties that are on there, because if you're like a hockey fan and you're just like scrolling through the amount of just absolute garbage clickbait that is so misleading that's on there is wild.
It is. It's crazy. And like, that's the thing is we often, and I appreciate it, but we often have people be like, this is the only Canucks page that's truthful on Facebook. Cause like you look at, like if you search Canucks on Facebook and look at Canucks page, it's all those like AI farm bots that's like the Victor Mancini disrespects Quinn Hughes and he's getting traded or whatever. Like that kind of content. And it's just, and the thing that really pisses me off, and I've started to go after these people, which is fun because you can find the source if you really try. If like a lot of times they'll repackage a Canucks Army article, like they'll take our work, but then they'll just give it the most clickbait headline possible. And I don't have an example off the top of my head, but that's kind of what they do. They take our work and then and I don't like that. And I go crazy for that. But anyways, doesn't happen much anymore because I've sent out a few emails. Anyways, let's move on. Let's go to this one from David Giles on Twitter. Does his recent point per game stretch and Hedl injury mean the Canucks will pay Pius Suter $4.25 million to be the 2C for this team? Harman, we were talking about penciling in Filip Hedl for next year. You talked about the uncertainty. You don't want Filip Hedl to be your 2C on paper and then get into a situation like this where you have to have Nilsson on, you have to have Pius Suter, you have to have Teddy Bluger, all these guys playing big minutes at center. You want to pencil in Filip Hedl as your 3C, ideally, right? How do you get there? Like, how is this team going to get there? I think Pius Suter, you look at the center options out there, like Pius Suter might end up being the guy.
Well, the decision the team has to make on whether or not to extend Suter doesn't necessarily, like, the beauty about Suter is you don't need to pencil him in somewhere specific because he's so versatile and can play anywhere in your top 9. Because let's be honest, in an ideal world, if you have actual aspirations of contending next season, as great as a story as Pius Suter has been this year, he's not your 2C. You don't want him to ideally be your 2C. We know this team would like to acquire another upper echelon marquee top 6 centerman behind Elias Paterson. So with Suter, well, here's the other thing. You can't even pencil Hedl in as your 3C with confidence because of the injury. So with Suter, he's an insurance policy at center. And if you strike out in the summer and you're kind of crap out of luck and you have to plug somebody in and Hedl's out, sure, that has value that he can step up and play 2C in a pinch. But even with the uncertainty around Hedl, 3C is totally fine for Suter at, let's say, like a $4 million cap hit. Mm-hmm. And even if there is a scenario where you're able to find your perfect second line center target and Hedl's healthy, which is the best case scenario, then you got a pretty solid 1-2-3 punch down the middle. We know Suter can really excel as a complementary top 6 winger too. So that's the beauty about Suter. And yeah, is there a little bit more urgency for the Canucks to maybe extend him now that we've seen him plug holes further up the lineup and there's extra uncertainty around Hedl? Yeah, I think the incentive for the Canucks to pay up has probably gone up a little bit. But the point I'm trying to make is even in a best case scenario where things work out down the middle without Suter, it's still worth exploring a Suter extension just because of other parts of the lineup that he can make a significant impact for your team on.
When you look at the list of free agent centers, there's not a ton of centers that pop out. When you look at that list of centers and say, which of these guys are versatile, the list basically begins and ends with Pius Suter. And I think that's what's going to play the biggest factor here is that he's someone the Canucks know. He's someone the Canucks like. They went out and found this guy at the end of the season. I think they, I don't want to speak in terms like they have to do it, but I really do think they will extend Pius Suter. I really think they will.
Yeah, and Tocchet was asked about Suter today too, and mentioned how at times he's been able to bail him out as a coach. As far as, JT Miller's leave of absence, when Paterson missed games, right after the Christmas holidays, the most recent stretch. And coaches love players that can just plug any hole in the lineup because injuries, adversity are usually gonna strike. Last year was an anomaly where they were really lucky injuries wise, and to just have Suter as a reliable guy who follows the system, is low maintenance, you can always count on him, plays a big role in the PK. When we have this conversation about the Canucks wanting to extend Rick Tocchet, there's also going to be a conversation around the decisions that this front office has to make on what the roster looks like next season. And if you're Canucks management and you are trying to entice Tocchet to sign an extension, I'm sure Pius Suter's status is one of the things Tocchet is going to ask about, because I'm sure Tocchet would love to have Suter back next season.
And if you missed it earlier, Tocchet did say those conversations are going to happen. The ones with him and management about direction and all that, those are going to happen. later. Those are for a later date. He's still keen on getting this team into the playoffs. Do we have Jeff now?
Yeah, Jeff looks like he is ready to go.
Excellent. Awesome. We're going to get to Jeff, who's brought to you by our friends at Greta Bar YVR, the home of our electric watch parties. We've got one more coming up. April 10th, Vancouver versus Colorado. It is sure to be a good time, no matter where the Canucks are in the standings at the time. So get your tickets, nationgear.ca. It's going to be a ton of fun. Even if we're not there, though, make ready your pre, post, or main spot to chill next time you're downtown. With drinks, the iconic street food menu, and of course, the arcade games, head on down to Greta. Today, 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. April 10th, 2025. Event is in support of Kids Sport. We bring him in now. Jeff Paterson from the Grizzlies locker room?
Yeah, if that's what we're going to call it. Media workroom, multifunctional facility here at Rogers Arena. Just wrapping up a little work after the practice. So, yes.
And what'd you see at practice today, Jeff? What'd you take in?
Well, I was glad to see Nils Höglander back out there, limited. It was kind of interesting as he wore his non-contact red jersey. He worked at one end of the ice, the rest of the team at the other. So I don't think he's an option for tomorrow night against Seattle, but I do think, based on what I saw today, that we'll see Nils Höglander again before the end of the season. As for Elias Pettersson and Filip, jury very much out on Petey, and based on the comments of Rick Tocchet, and I'm sure you guys have discussed it already, he said if he was a betting man, probably not for Hedl, and you can understand why. So, that's disappointing, obviously, for the Canucks, as short-staffed as they are. We'll have to wait and see about Elias Pettersson. Said that, there's been a few days of skating, but not a lot of progress there to report. So 8 games to go. I guess your guess is as good as mine whether we see number 40 back on the ice for the Canucks over the balance of this regular season.
J-Pat, outside of the miracle long shot possibility of them rolling off 7 or 8 wins and getting back into the playoffs, outside of that, what's on the line for the Canucks through these final 8 games, maybe for specific players? Like, what matters down this stretch for, let's say, fans who maybe aren't believers that they're actually going to get back into the playoff mix? What are you really going to be focusing on?
I suppose the young players that they've incorporated in the lineup here. And, we've given Abbotsford a ton of credit, and Manny Malhotra and the job that he's done. Harm, you were in the scrum. I was a little surprised. I asked Rick Tocchet about more opportunities for Jonathan Lekkerimäki, and the question wasn't posed as, like, why isn't this guy playing? It was more, what have you seen in this call-up from Lekkerimäki, and do you want to get him a few more opportunities? And Tocchet kind of pushed back pretty quickly and said, where do you want me to play him, center? And kind of gave me the glare that coaches sometimes do. And, that's not at all what I was getting at. It was more... in Winnipeg the other day, tight game, third period in Columbus, a tight game. And Rick Tocchet's still coaching to win here. So we've seen this with young players. Hard to get them ice time sometimes. But once they're mathematically eliminated, I hope that, the coach and the management group, the organization isn't beholden to this win at all costs, that it should be finding opportunities for these guys to play. Now, in Rick's defense, power plays have been hard to come by. I think they only had 7 or 8 on the entire road trip. We're seeing that around the league at this time of the year. Refs putting their whistles away. And that is an area that Lekkerimäki can get more ice time. But you think back to the commentary in this market after the New Jersey game, the goal in the third period and the twirl of the stick in the shootout, this market was like, he's arrived. This is it. I thought Lekkerimäki had a pretty quiet rest of the road trip, and just the counting stats would tell you the same. Now, didn't get a ton of ice time, as we said, sort of around the 10-minute mark, playing with his fellow Swedes, Linus Karlsson and Nils Åman. So, a little bit of a mixed bag there at the NHL level in terms of, here's Lekkerimäki, who projects to be a top 6 staple for this organization for years to come. And the other guys give you what they can, but they're not gifted offensively. And so I am, roundabout way, Lekkerimäki's near the top of my list, I suppose, of the guys that I'm going to be watching. What kind of roles does he get? How much opportunity? And when he gets them, shoot the puck. That's his God-given talent. That's going to be his meal ticket at this level. I want to see him in positions to fire the puck. So more Ratu. I was impressed with what I saw from him. I want to see him with my own eyes here on the homestand. And then I'm curious to, do we get to a point in the program where DPD and Mancini get to play in the lineup to get, they don't have to play together, but are they in there on the same night? Does Derek Forbort have to play every game remaining? Does it get to a point where they give Quinn Hughes a night off? So they got some decisions, and I do hope that, give this fan base a sense of hope. Rick Tocchet again referred to the fact that they are, the fifth or sixth youngest team in the National Hockey League right now, and they are. I mean, the roster is what it is. So if it is about building for the future, then give some of these paying customers that haven't been rewarded with their hard-earned money over the balance of the season, give them something to chew on moving forward here and lean into playing some of these young guys, particularly the home games.
Is there anyone from Abbotsford you want to see get a look? Obviously, we're going to talk about Tom Willander as well, but is there anyone from Abbotsford that you'd like to see get a look?
Well, I think they're up against it with their call-ups. If I'm not mistaken, they've used certainly 3, if not all 4. They had to convert the Linus Karlsson emergency call-up at one point when he did play. So I'd have to go and double-check on that. But that's the issue, that it's not as easy as just bringing up all your guys from the farm and playing the kids. Rules are in place so the teams can't do that. I mean, it's basically an anti-tanking measure. So Max Sasson has been returned. He was up on an emergency, didn't get into the lineup on the road trip, but he has been sent back to Abbotsford. Just the way that he's played over the second half of the season, I guess, wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of him if that was an opportunity. But, in terms of going deep in the Kirill Kudratsievs of the world, that's just not going to happen at this late stage. And again, Rick Tocchet's coaching to win hockey games at the NHL level. It's not about giving guys cookies and rewarding them. Plus, Abbotsford's on this absolute heater right now. I don't think Manny Malhotra wants any more guys taken out of his lineup. And so, I think basically the lineup that they've got here is the lineup that they're going to move forward with. And then it's a question of, can they get any of these injured guys back before the end of the season?
What do you expect the Canucks to do with Quinn's workload down the stretch? Do you expect him to play in all of these games, even if they get mathematically eliminated at some point? Do you expect the club to scale his minutes back a little bit, or do you expect him to still be playing 25, 26, 27 minutes a night for all of these remaining games?
Well, I'd sign up for 25 if they could cap it at that. I just think that that's a big ask for this organization. Again, as long as they are still not mathematically eliminated. Does that change the calculus once that happens? Maybe. I wrote about this at Canucks Army yesterday, and I was a little surprised just to see. I mean, I kind of was working on a premise, and the numbers bore it out that when Filip Hronek was injured before Christmas, and you think of the defense core that they started the season with, well, they got Hronek back in mid-January. They made the trade for Marcus Paterson on January 31st. And since those two guys have been in the lineup together, Quinn's workload's actually gone up since the Four Nations break. And we know that he wasn't healthy enough to play at the Four Nations. We know that he's missed 14 games since Christmas. And yet, down the stretch, they've just leaned so heavily on him. He has 4 of the 15 highest individual ice times in the National Hockey League since the Four Nations. So, up over 30 minutes twice. It's not working. If the Canucks were on a St. Louis Blues heater and that was the common denominator, then maybe you say, all right, there's a means to the end here. But I think we've reached a point where we're getting diminishing returns now on Quinn Hughes. I thought the games on the island, in Columbus and Winnipeg, maybe the 3 quietest games that he's had in a 3-game stretch all season, perhaps. And he just, defensively in Winnipeg, he was fine, but it was pretty clear that he didn't have that extra gear at the end of a road trip with the workload and everything else. Back him off. He doesn't need to play 28, 29 minutes. So, easier said than done. But if I was prescribing a formula for these final 8 games, I might leave him home from the Dallas-Denver road trip. He's not in the running for the Norris. He's not pushing to make a late bid for the Hart here. I think your home fans, you've got to be mindful, again, of the product you put on the ice all season long. They want to see Quinn Hughes. And so I would like to think that he would play the home games. And again, I don't think Quinn Hughes is skipping a road trip at this stage. But in a perfect world, maybe you do leave him home and just let him rest up. Farhan asked him point blank, what is your health? And he said, I'm 100%. So, whether that's putting on a brave face or he truly is feeling better than he has at any point here since Christmas, we'll take him at face value. But he just doesn't need to play 28, 29 minutes the rest of the way. There's just no point. Plus, that sort of plays into my previous response of I want to see a little bit more of some of those younger guys. So, find a way to get DPD up to 13, 14 minutes, and maybe some of that comes from backing Quinn's minutes off just a little bit.
Jeff, just looking around the league, the St. Louis Blues are on an absolute heater. I took them to win the cup yesterday. I'll just tell you. I'm not sure if you tuned into Canucks Conv. I picked them as my cup winner. They're getting hot at the right time. Who's your favorite right now to win the cup, just as we wrap up here? Like, who are you looking at and saying, like, that's the team that's going to get it done this year?
It's hard to look past Winnipeg. And I know that they've got their playoff bugaboos, and they do. Like, they may run into St. Louis in the first round. Congratulations for finishing first in the conference. That's your prize. And that won't be easy. But they're a team that's built to win. We know that they've had issues in the playoffs, but Connor Hellebuyck just looks like a guy that's motivated to put all of the past behind him, the disappointment of the Four Nations. His numbers, and the Canucks saw him on Sunday. Like, he just didn't blink after he gave up the first one. They're going to get Neil Pionk back. They're going to get other pieces. They made deals at the deadline to bolster an already impressive lineup. And look, they're top-end guys. Like Connor, he's in that next tier. He's not in the McDavid, McKinnon, but the kind of season he's having, he's in that next tier of guys that absolute game breakers. And the Canucks saw that firsthand back in mid-January when he had the first period natural hat trick. Mark Scheifele has been consistently good all season long. They got the best power play in the National Hockey League. The West is going to be an absolute gauntlet. I get that, but I'm giving Winnipeg the benefit of the doubt that they're going to get over their first round troubles. And once they do, maybe that liberates them a little bit. So would love to see the Canadian drought come to an end after 3 decades. And I like a lot about what the Winnipeg Jets are doing.
Jeff, great stuff as always. We'll read your work over at CanucksArmy.com, and we will chat with you soon.
All right, guys. Thanks.
There he is, Jeff Paterson, the host of Rink Wide Vancouver. You can catch him after every Canucks game over on the Rink Wide Vancouver YouTube channel. And, of course, his work is over at CanucksArmy.com. Harman, did you have anything else you wanted to get to? We kind of interrupted anything else to get to Jeff. I don't think there was anything else that I had. Oh, yeah, Canucks playoff odds. Have to give it before we get to the Tankathon and the draft lottery simulator. Canucks have 7.7% chance of making the playoffs, according to Money Puck.
Not great.
Still a chance. I ain't hear no bell. And
if you're curious, their odds to win the draft lottery are 0.5%. And of course, because of their positioning, they cannot get to first overall. So
that's okay. You'll get a really good player at 5th overall. Calgary Flames keep winning. That happened again. The Calgary Flames won in overtime against Colorado Avalanche.
And the comebacks too. They were down 2-0.
They're not going away. They're not going away just yet.
That's why I was like, I'm not when they lost to Dallas in that heartbreaking fashion. Like, that's devastating, but I'm not gonna call them finished. Or say it's over because I've made that mistake in the past with them.
Updated Minnesota Wild playoff hopes, 85.4%. They keep plummeting. They've officially been passed.
Plummeting. Dude, they've dropped from 93 to 85.
They were at 98 last week.
No, they weren't. They were at 93. I was the one who told you the odds.
Oh. I thought they were at 98.
They were not at 98. No one said 98. You made that up in your head.
Oh, okay. Maybe that was the Oilers.
Half the time when you would reference 98, you would be like 98 or 94.
Give or take. They are plummeting. They're still
plummeting from 93 to what did you say they were? 80?
They're 85.4 now.
Come on.
Plummet.
Them picking up at least a point against the Devils is huge, by the way.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. They did pick up the 1 point. They're at 88 in the overall standings now. I want to talk about the Oilers. I don't think we have to. I think the dream might be dying out here, but we'll see. Canucks play the
what dream?
Canucks making the playoffs. You heard Tocchet. Wait, you want to go tell Rick?
Oh,
you were there. Why didn't you tell
Oilers
Rick
aren't dropping out?
This is you in the scrum, Rick. Given that none of these games matter anymore, since you guys are absolutely cooked.
No, I meant the dream, as in like with the Oilers specifically falling out, not the Canucks making it.
Oh, sure.
Because you tried to give me your half-assed pitch on why the Oilers would fall out.
Could still happen. I don't think Leon Draisaitl's going to let that happen.
No,
who's at the top of your heart ballot
Leon.
right now? Is it still Leon? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it has to be Leon, and I also think
He's had
helps in his
crappy
favor.
wingers all
I
year.
think absolutely, and I think that's the conversation we had at the start of the season, like halfway point when we did our last ballot look in, and I think it certainly helps his case that without him, the Oilers looked absolutely awful. And we started up these I started up these conversations of what if they fall out, what if this happens, and then as soon as he comes back, it's like nope, that's not happening.
Also, it's been a weird season because I haven't checked as of like a couple weeks ago, but when I did last check, the Oilers didn't even have a positive goal differential with McDavid's line on the ice at 5-5. Now, part of that is because his wingers took a step back, but the point being, McDavid hasn't been playing at an MVP level this year. He's been pretty ordinary, and I think a lot of it is the workload too. Of you make it to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, then he plays in the Four Nations. He's been playing through a couple knocks. He just hasn't been the best player in the league this year, just straight up. And so when you consider that Leon's had crappy line mates, has played on his own line separate from McDavid for most of the season, and is sort of driving this Oilers team at a time when McDavid, it's not like the Oilers are, again, they had an even goal differential for and against during McDavid's 5-5 minutes. Leon's been doing a lot of heavy lifting.
All season long. Like that just said is what we were literally talking about at the halfway point in the season when we were looking at the odds for the Hart. Yeah, I don't know about this team's ability to like actually make noise in the playoffs. That's what I'm worried about. I don't know how far you can go with Stuart Skinner, man. Like, I don't think you can do anything with Stuart Skinner in net.
Yeah, and if McDavid isn't the McDavid of last year's playoffs, all of a sudden that round one matchup against LA, given how well they're rolling and the Kings likely getting home ice advantage where they've been so good compared to their mediocre road record. And if Quinton Byfield can continue his momentum and he has a breakout playoffs and gives them that punch at the top of the lineup offensively that they haven't most years against Edmonton, all of a sudden it becomes an actually competitive series as opposed to a round one matchup that you just roll your eyes and go, wow, Oilers are going to easily take this in 5 or 6.
Remember when people were really mean to Mikko Koskinen?
I mean, was it not deserved?
No.
People were mean to a lot of Oilers goalies over the last.
Well, they're starting
10
to be
years.
mean to Stuart Skinner. And I'm not saying I'm pro be mean to goalies, but I am saying like, pretty sure I've seen a lot of Stuart Skinner defenders that were also like, get Koskinen out of here. And Koskinen's a way better goalie than Skinner's ever been in his tenure.
Remember at one point earlier this year when people were saying, some people were saying Stuart Skinner should be on Team Canada for the Four Nations. I remember that. Do
you know what the problem is? The real problem is that I was a huge fan of Stuart Skinner. Like,
remember heading into the Stanley Cup Final when you picked Stuart Skinner for Colin Smythe as one of your Bet365 bet of the days.
Oh,
you did that.
I do. Yes,
that was great odds. I would do it again. Yeah, right.
Wow, now. You were ready to pick a goaltender who had a sub 900 save percentage for the Colin Smythe.
That's a sharp value bet. Right now, you can get Stuart Skinner at plus 15,000. Harm.
Do it, hammer it. I want you to personally have something on the line here. Then, if you're that confident.
Hold up. Okay, let's see here. Stuart Skinner plus 1,500. $1 bet returns $151.
$1 bet returns you nothing.
Jacob, am I allowed to say free money?
No, you cannot say that. Absolutely.
Yeah, free money for Bet365.
That you can say, but you shouldn't.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to get to before we close it out here with our Bet365 bet of the day?
No.
Okay, believe it or not, it's not Stuart Skinner to win the Conn Smythe today. Let's take a look at the NHL slate of games. How do you feel about the Montreal Canadiens, Jacob?
They're so streaky. Like for 2 weeks at a time, they'll look like a cup contender. And then the next 2 weeks, they'll look like they should probably be in the draft lottery and nothing in between. Their position in the standings is because it is the midpoint of their top and low end, which is frustrating, but you never know. They're still in a hunt.
Well, tonight, and speaking of hunt, the Florida Panthers visit the Bell Center And the Montreal Canadiens are going to give it to the Panthers tonight. And I'll tell you why, Harm. Nico Mikkola, did you see this? With the clapper at the end of regulation, and he was taken off by the officials, but then scurrying to the locker room. That is such a Bush League move. And honestly, like, I don't know. I'm a pretty passionate guy, as you know, but like, I really liked that response from the Habs to just all go right after him. You absolutely have to defend your boys on that. That's crazy. That's crazy behavior. Like, if you do that in a
It
beer
is
league
funny
game,
though.
I'd be so mad.
It is funny though that he got fined for shooting a puck during regulation time.
It is a funny thing to read, but you saw it. You know that deserved a fine.
And Quads, I will say that with the Habs and Panthers, this is the third time they've played them since March 15th. They beat the Panthers on March 15th, 3-1. And then a couple nights ago, they beat them 4-2 in Florida. So that is a team they have done well against this season.
Florida doesn't want to face the Habs in the first round.
No, I don't think they do. You know, Montembeault, obviously, former Panther. You don't want to face a goalie that you trade away in the first round of the playoffs. It's never good omen for those who have superstitions.
But
it's not going to happen though, because the Caps are going to get first.
Yeah, I know. It wouldn't happen unless, I mean, Montreal could pass Ottawa, but I don't think that's happening.
The Caps
not the way that the Habs are playing.
I would love a Caps Habs rematch. Given that all those years ago, Habs is the 8th seed.
I've said this before. It was 15 years ago. It was 2010.
Yeah,
the President's Trophy winning Capitals against the 8th seed Habs, who were kind of in a weird time. Like that was kind of just at the start of them being competitive through most of the 2010s. Like it was a very similar situation for both teams in a way, but obviously, really the only holdover is Alexander Ovechkin.
And don't look now, but the Leafs have a 3-point lead in the Atlantic. We're set up for a Battle of Ontario.
Yeah.
We could get Battle of Ontario, Caps, Canadiens, and then a Battle of Florida as well.
It would be an awesome first round.
Electric series.
Yeah, absolutely. How many goals away is Ovechkin now? Is he 6 away?
5, I believe.
What?
Right?
5. Wow. 5 away from tying 6.
I'm not.
Right? Jacob?
Give me 1 sec.
I think he's 6 away. Regardless.
He is. It says just 5 goals to go. So I don't know if they're counting down.
I think that's
to
to break it.
I think
that's to break it. Yeah, 5 to break it.
5 to breaking it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I might be wrong about him taking all the way till the Pittsburgh Penguins game, last game of the season, to break that record. Tonight they're playing, and that's when you're going to want to watch Boston, Washington. Man, Ovechkin's great. Yeah, he's a great goal scorer, and it's going to be cool to see him break this record this season. Knock on wood, of course, but I called it. I called it at the start of the year. Got to just float that in there.
Yeah, I know you did. Early.
I did. I called it very early. But you know what? That's a time that not really knowing how to do math benefits me, because I don't think I really did the math of like how many goals he'd have to get in how many games, because this is a ridiculous goal scoring pace, especially for a guy who was really slow to start last season. And yeah, he picked it up at the end of last year, but like it wasn't like this is a great year for him. Whereas last year, again, it was 31 goals last year, and you weren't thinking that he would improve on that necessarily, but not knowing how to do math comes out and benefits.
If only you were this good with your fantasy baseball too.
Oh, don't
shame.
start.
It's a shame.
Now I have to give fantasy baseball updates every week. I'm doing great. I'm in second place, and
you're last place out of 15 teams in the other league.
Okay, in the other league, yeah, I'm struggling right now, but we're coming. I have Shohei Ohtani on that team, so we're coming.
Yeah, you're the Angels then.
I did draft.
Yeah, you have Ohtani, but you're still terrible.
Wow. I hate that you know just enough about baseball to make a good reference
I was gonna say, when Harm uses baseball knowledge to take a shot at Quads, it's pretty satisfying.
Yeah, I don't like that. Cut that from the audio pod, Jacob. All right, we'll close it out there for my co-host Harman Dial and our technical producer Jacob.
Well, hold on. Did you actually make a Bet365 pick?
Yeah, I did. I said Habs.
Okay, yes. I wasn't sure if you actually
plus
made it.
140 odds. Oh no,
Plus
you're right. I didn't actually do it. Plus 140 odds, Habs money line. That's our bet of the day. brought to you by Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner. Every face-off, hat-trick, power play, shot on goal, penalty shot, and every suspenseful minute in between is amazing. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. Bet365, an official partner of the NHL. Download the Bet365 app and use the code NATION to get in on the game. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Now we will wrap it up. For my co-host Harman Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar, my name is Dave Rogelli. Thanks so much for the episode of Canucks Conversation.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.